You are listening to the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast, episode number 243, The Attachment Cycle. Welcome to How to Get Over Your Ex, a podcast on getting over your ex without it just taking time. I'm your host, Breakup Coach Dorothy. Let's turn your pain into power and your heartbreak into happy. Hello, beautiful brave hearts. I am so excited for today's show. I have some very special and very sacred news that I cannot wait to share with all of you. And before I do, I want to nudge you with a friendly reminder that the Get Over Your Ex program is now open for enrollment. So if you'd like to not only get over your ex, but also build your bigger and better life in a completely new and different way with tools and skills that you're going to utilize for the rest of your life, I would love to personally invite you to the Get Over Your Ex program. In this program, you have everything you need to succeed. You get the Breakup Masterclass, which is like the podcast on steroids, everything you need to know, exactly when you need to know it. You'll get individualized coaching twice weekly on Zoom and unlimited written coaching, so that way you can ask questions. When things come up, I can help you anticipate things before they actually even drop or happen, because your breakup journey can be so wild. You'll also be a part of the Braveheart community with other like-minded people who are all healing heartbreak in a completely new way and going after their bigger and better lives. And truthfully, there is nothing like celebrating with people who truly get it. Like, they get how big of a deal it is to go a whole day without thinking about your ex. So if you're struggling and just merely getting by in your breakup and you want to stop constantly thinking about this person, you want to feel complete and indifferent towards your ex, reduce desire and attachment, rebuild your confidence and your trust in yourself, and of course, build a life that your ex regrets leaving, right? No matter what that is, whether it's a certain lifestyle, a certain amount of money, a career change, a home, a new partner, this is the program to be in. You can head over to www.dorothyabjohnson.com/get over your ex celebrate to enroll and save your spot before Friday, June 14th. And this actually brings me to a very special announcement that goes hand in hand with this week's podcast episode topic. This is actually going to be the very last round of the Get Over Your Ex program for 2024 because I am 23 weeks pregnant and I will be on maternity leave starting October 2024, and I plan to be back sometime in January of 2025, but I also don't know at what capacity. So the Get Over Your Ex program as it stands, this is going to be the last time I run it. It may look very different the day that I come back. I'm not sure if I'll come back and we'll be doing coaching, if we'll be offering just courses. This is, a different time for me. So I'll be delivering this round of the Get Over Your Ex program from June through September, and then enrollment closes this Friday, June 14th. So you want to make sure that you get into the program. This is like the last time you're going to be able to work with me, and I know, and I'm so excited to see all of you who are just pumped to do this work inside. And because this is the last chance to work with me in this way, I want to be sure that you get the help that you need now. I do not want you to wait and then need to work with me in 2025. Like, I cannot even imagine you mired in pain for 6 months. I do not want that. I want you over your ex, living your bigger and better life by September of this year, so that, Thanksgiving and Christmas, perhaps you're even falling in love because we love love, right? And having the most magical holiday season. That's what I see in your future. So this all brings me back to the point of today's episode. We're going to talk about the attachment cycle. My friends, I'm really pumped to share this with you. This is huge. This is a concept that came to me when I was about 3 months into my pregnancy. Many of you who have been listening for a while to this How to Get Over Your Ex podcast have lived through the heartbreak of me losing baby Marilyn at 13 weeks. And just, the heartbreak of coming out of that, the fallout of my engagement, and the complete storm that really hit my life during that time frame. So coming on here and sharing that I'm pregnant is a very big deal to me. I don't take sharing this news lightly. For all of you who are listening who really want a child and don't have one or have experienced loss in this way, please know that I see you, I stand with you, and I feel you. And I'm here for it all. And trust me when I say I was not expecting this. I had really throughout all of last year in 2023 done the work to get to this place of my life of feeling really great without kids. And I actually got to the point of like, I think I'm okay with not having any children. And that was not easy work, especially post miscarriage. All I wanted was a child. It was a deep biological experience for me. So when I got pregnant, it was just the weirdest, most wildest situation. And I kind of want to walk through the timeline so everyone's on the same page. So I had a miscarriage at 13 weeks with baby Marilyn, and that was November of 2022. December of 2022, that miscarriage went awry and I had to have emergency surgery, which was extraordinarily traumatic. And then January of 2023, my partner, my fiance at the time, and I had split up and we went back to just dating, seeing what this might be. Then in March of 2023, I bought my house. I moved out of our combined home into my own home. And then in April of 2023, I started doing physical body healing work, like fasting and a bunch of body work that needed to happen due to the miscarriage. Then after that, after April, I really dove back into business and personal self-help work and really I didn't really feel big shifts until about September of 2023, where everything that I had been working on up until that point started landing. I was like, I'm just done. I'm done with half-assed behavior. I'm done with people who don't treat people well. I'm done with needing anything, whether it was my business, whether it was baby Marilyn. I was sick of feeling heavy and attached to almost everything in my life. And I was tired of feeling like I needed kids or my life would not be fulfilling. As a woman, I don't know if any other women listening to this really understand that. I'm assuming some of you might understand that, where it's like I think we're taught that we're supposed to grow up and have children, and I don't know. It was like I thought my life would be less than without them until I got serious, okay? So I got to serious work and I started looking at, in what ways was my child-free life actually easier and better and more fulfilling? And I realized, I get to have a lot of money and time freedom. I slept in whenever I wanted. I didn't care what I was doing when I was doing it. I didn't have to care for another human being. Essentially, my freedom was how I saw it. And that freedom was, that's valuable, right? And it was fulfilling because I still got to show up as a mother in a lot of ways. And I got to provide powerful, impact and extraordinary perspectives in a lot of different ways. So then I started looking at what were the specific things that I really thought I was missing out on as not being a mom, and why that was so important to me. And I remember, a coach friend had asked me, what specifically did you think was going to be different? And for me, I thought, I wanted to teach my kids how to handle emotion, and I wanted to throw baby Marilyn a party, and I also wanted to watch them grow and, have Christmas centered around them and Santa Claus. And notice how selfish all of those things were. Like, I don't mean that in a bad way in any way, shape, or form, but it was very interesting that I have never, even up until this point, I cannot find a reason for having children that isn't about me. It's not like we're in desperate need of children here in the United States right now. Like, it's interesting to think about on a different level. But then I started thinking, specifically, what are these experiences for myself that I thought I was missing out on. And so I went out and I did all those things. I threw Tinkerbell a banger of a 2-year-old birthday party. Tinkerbell is my 130-pound Great Dane. It was epic. It was amazing. I started volunteering at the Valerie House, teaching kids about grief and learning how to handle emotions. I started teaching figure skating to 5 and 6-year-olds. I did Christmas the exact way that I would have if baby Marilyn would have been there. And the craziest thing happened, Bravehearts. I was like, after all of that, I just landed on this idea of like, I don't think I need kids. I literally get all the perks of having kids without any of the cons of having kids. This is great. And I remember turning to Jake and being like, I'm kind of good without them. We don't actually need them. And what if we just did life together because we wanted to be together, regardless of children, regardless of not children. And it was just an eye-opening moment for myself and for him. And so then in December remember that was between, all of that work happened between, I think, April and December. But the releasing of the attachment around this kids really happened September, October, November. So then by December, I'm like, I'm going to repropose to Jake. He's my now husband. I'm going to repropose to Jake. And he proposed to me the first time. And this time I wanted him to be sure that I was picking him, that I was choosing him. Not because of him being a good dad or because he'd be a good father of my children, but because I was choosing him as my life partner no matter what came our way. And so I got a plane, I got a pilot, I got a banner, and I proposed to him on the beach in front of his family and friends. And it was amazing. I loved every second of it. So then we decided to get married on Leap Day, which for those of you who don't know what that is, it's February 29th. And then that way it only happens once every 4 years and we get to have a big party for our anniversary. And what happened was between our engagement and our wedding, I spontaneously ovulated and we got pregnant. Number one, I didn't know that that was something that could happen. But it was wild. So in between our engagement and our wedding, we got pregnant and I'm just kind of like, come on. The moment I was good without kids, I got a kid. Isn't this the story of my life, Bravehearts? Like so on brand. I went from dating to married and pregnant in 3 months or less. What? I went from dating to married and pregnant in 3 months or less. And that just to me, number one, yes, it's so on brand. But number two, this is what made me realize the attachment cycle. And I want to teach it to you today because I start out with almost everything in my life. I start out attached. And because this cycle is keeping you stuck from one, getting over your ex, and two, having everything you've ever wanted in your life. Anything that matters or is meaningful, I think it's hard to not have an attachment to. And I'm going to deep dive on this concept with you today in the podcast, of course, but I'm taking it a level further and doing a workshop inside of the Get Over Your Ex program later this month. So if you really want to deep dive and workshop and have this applied to your life, you have to come join us in the program. Even if you consider yourself over your ex and you need, I still think you need to come. Let's spend 3 months together and create epic things in 3 months or less. Anything that's related to your bigger and better life, whatever you want in 3 months, I know it's available to you and I want to help you create it. This is bigger than a breakup program. This isn't just about getting over your ex. It always turns into more about yourself and what you're learning and the skill sets that you're learning that are going to completely change the trajectory of your life. Okay. So what is the attachment cycle? So it's the cycle that creates what you deeply desire. It's a cycle that you move through physically and mentally to get what you want in this world. And it's 5 stages. It's very simple. It's 5 stages, and there's one thing that propels you through each stage, and that is safety. 5 stages, the thing that propels you through each stage is safety, yes, okay? So the first stage is attached. This is when you notice yourself feeling grippy and all you want is this one thing. You can't see anything else and you feel like your life is going to be forever over if you don't have it. Sound familiar to those of you who are not over your ex, right? Yeah. I felt that same way about my ex. I felt that same way about my full-time position as a coach. I felt that way at around $200K in a year. I felt that way about marriage, and I felt that way about baby. It all started there. The second stage is resistance. And this is where you notice yourself, you try to shift and you try to see it in another way, or logically you can grasp it that your life could be okay, but like truthfully, deep down in your heart, you don't think your life will be as fulfilling without it in it, right? Again, for those of you who are working on getting over your ex, you resonate, right? Maybe you've tried some of this work on, logically you understand that you're worthy, that you're enough, but you don't feel it in your bones. And then we get to stage 3, which is openness and curiosity. You truly explore how you already have this experience or this thing in your life. You get curious about how, the cards that you currently have are better than the outcome you've been seeking so desperately. And you do this with mind and body, which leads me to stage 4, which is release. And this is really important. The release doesn't just happen mentally. Physically and mentally, you've released this idea of having to have it. It's out there and you're not completely opposed to it, but you're also okay without it. You feel relieved and completely wide open to what has been given to you and on board and in love with what has been given to you. It's a state of like complete peace. And after that stage, after you've released, is where we get to stage 5, and that's manifested. This is where, there is this full release physically with your body and mentally with your mind around this attachment cycle for this desired outcome. And it's when it manifests into your reality. It's when it appears in your reality as a physical form. So there was a stage between release and manifested for me, right? I had physically released the idea of children, and then the physical manifestation of it wasn't until like a month and a half later when the baby is in the uterus, right? And we've got the positive pregnancy test and the confirmed pregnancy, because that's a whole other thing. I could do a whole other podcast on that. Okay, so after I got pregnant and stayed pregnant, obviously I realized like I could lose the pregnancy still. Open to that, whatever needs to happen will happen. But after I got pregnant and stayed pregnant past that 13-week mark, I really realized this is the cycle I've gone through for anything meaningful to myself. Anything that's ever been like big and epic to me, I've gone through this cycle. It all started with the ex, and then having my coaching business as my full-time job, then my first $200K year, and then my marriage, and then my baby. And each of those outcomes or desires, I had to move through the entirety of that attachment cycle. Now, going back to safety, because safety is your key. Safety is the propeller on the boat through the attachment cycle. Safety is what propels you through this cycle. If you don't feel safe enough to explore anything, you will stay stuck in the resistance part of the cycle. If your body doesn't feel safe enough to release, you'll stay stuck in the curiosity part of the cycle where the mind does the work, but the body won't just let go. And it makes me really curious where each of you are in this attachment cycle. Are you still attached to your ex? And you're just now starting to realize how graspy and terrible it feels. That means you're in the first stage. Have you started to explore how life might be without your ex, but deep down you can't fully open up or get curious about how you might actually like the life without that person? You're probably in the resistance stage. And perhaps you've begun to mentally work through the hoops of what's better without your ex and how you can still have those experiences in your life regardless of him or her being in your life. So you're in the openness and curiosity stage. Or maybe you've released entirely with the mind, but there's that one last part of the body that is really holding on, and you can still experience that body holding on. And so you're in the release stage. Or perhaps you've released entirely, right? Physically and mentally, and now you're in that beautiful in between of truly enjoying what is before your manifestation actually appears. So here are some questions. We're going to deep dive in this and get really specific inside of the workshop in the Get Over Your Ex program, so get in there. But here are some questions I feel like you could use today to help yourself understand where you are in this cycle. Okay, what am I seeking? What do I want so badly and why? What am I grasping to so tightly? Unable to even explore what the other side is like mentally or physically? What am I afraid to lose and why? Use those questions to help yourself figure out what stage you're technically in for your attachment cycle. And once you've identified where you are, it really comes down to the second step of creating safety. Safety in your body, safety in your emotions, safety in your mind, safety in your relationship with yourself, right? You have to be able to trust yourself. And a lot of times when people come to me to work with me in the Get Over Your Ex program, they're in a space of not even feeling confident in their ability to trust themselves. So of course they don't feel safe to explore these ideas. And there are a number of ways to do this. And we're going to, again, deep dive on that in the attachment style workshop that we do in the Get Over Your Ex program. So please come join us. But here's kind of where you can start. And I look at it based on 3 pillars. The first one is spirit, the second one is body, and the third is mind. I like to address them in that order. I know we kind of talk about like mind, body, spirit. I actually like to address it in spirit, body, and then mind. And I'll kind of tell you why. I have to remind myself that there's something bigger at play, that there is a universe conspiring for me and not to me. And I can ask spirit, am I safe? Am I loved? And am I okay? And the answer always comes back yes. And a great sense of peace. And I think for me, remembering that it's always happening for me and not to me, as well as it's this or something better, that builds the safety in spirit. Then I go to body work because just for myself personally, my body, if my body's not well, my mind has a hard time managing emotion and my mind has a hard time managing thoughts. I feel like I have to put my body first before I can do thought work. So I do body work to regulate my nervous system. I loosen the areas of my body that feels tense and tight. I do meditations. I do craniosacral, acupuncture, massage, energetic work, shaking my body, moving my body, asking my inner voice how to move my body. This whole podcast is filled with different ways that you can do that. But then comes the mind. And this is where I'm a fucking queen. I own this part. This part is my favorite. So this is really about asking myself 2 primary questions. The first one is all about how is my life better? And how do I love the cards that I was dealt in life? So how is life without this thing I desire so much better without it in it? And another way to say that same question is, what is so amazing about the cards I've been dealt right now? And what do I get now that I won't have when I do have that outcome? I am such an advocate for always getting on board with whatever cards I have been dealt. And that doesn't mean that I hold on to those beliefs once I create the manifestation. Of course, I did all of this work to be like, my life's amazing without kids. But I can tell you what, when I have this child, I will change those beliefs and I will talk about how amazing my life is with that child. And I will talk about how much better my life is with this child in it, because those will be the cards that I was dealt. You do not have to keep those same beliefs for the rest of your life. And I think knowing that can provide you safety to the mind of, just because I get on board with this, number one, you don't have to get on board with it if you want to just explore it. But number two, even if I do get on board with loving where I'm at, it doesn't mean I don't get to love what I have when I create what it is that I want so deeply. What? So good. So then the second question is all about figuring out how to have the experiences that you think you can only have with that one thing in your life, whether that's your ex, whether it's a baby, whether it's a job, whether it's money, whether it's a career, whatever it is. So what is the experience I think I'm missing without this thing in my life? And how can I cultivate that right now? How can I have that right now? Because it was so foundational in my experience of I get to be a mom in so many ways. Now, that didn't mean I was going up to kids and acting like their mom. It just meant here are the ways that were important to me to show up for children. And I get to do that. And I'm going to work on, creating that for myself and making sure I have that experience in an appropriate way, of course. Now, when your mind is exploring this, it's so much easier to do that when you've created safety, because the mind doesn't think it's safe to explore these questions. Again, because it thinks, oh my God, you're giving up. You can't give up on what you want, which is true. Don't give up on the outcome. But we are loosening up to the how, which includes the timeline, which ultimately, as I've seen in my life and in my clients' lives, it actually collapses the timeline, which is insane. Like, isn't that insane? It's still blowing my mind. Like, I know it's on brand that I ended up going from dating to married and pregnant in 3 months or less, but I am still kind of mind blown by the actualization of all of that. And I'm not saying that that's the goal for everybody. I'm just saying that when we can loosen up to the how, and we can loosen up to this attachment and move through this attachment cycle, it collapses timelines. And I keep seeing it. I've seen it a lot of times, but then I've also seen it in my life, and then I'm seeing it in other people's lives, and it's just so interesting. Okay, so here are some questions that I want to help you with in terms of creating more safety in a way that you need, okay? So you can ask yourself, what does safety feel like in my body? What does safety feel like in my mind? What do I need to know that I'm safe? What do I need to know about myself that I'm safe to explore releasing attachment? How can I create safety physically and or mentally to move into the next stage of this attachment cycle? Okay. I love you, Bravehearts, so much. Seriously, you mean the world to me. I'm so grateful to be a part of your journey. I'm so grateful to do this work with you and to share my personal life with you. I haven't done it in a long time, honestly, because I just haven't felt safe. And so after creating a year of safety, I feel safe to share these things with you again. And I'm really grateful and proud. And I do want to just say thank you so much for those of you who've been listening for a really long time. And thank you for those who are new and who are accepting of me and everything that I have to bring. So I love you, Bravehearts. I'm telling you, the attachment cycle is a game changer. Come join the Get Over Your Ex program for the last round to master this and to become an expert in this and collapse your own timeline. It's going to be epic. I cannot wait to see what is created in a 3-month time frame for those of you who join and I get to witness that journey. I love you all so much, and I will talk to you next time. If you're loving the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast and you want to learn how to get over your ex in 3 months or less to build a life better than the one you thought you had with your ex, I would like to personally invite you to my next group course where we take everything you've learned here on the podcast and apply it to your life. Come check it out at www.lifecoachdorothy.com.